that I saw come up in my feed. And when I saw the title, I knew it was going to be a fiery, juicy debate. Because he's usually an honest broker. Let's get straight into it. I'm not taking it from the top, partway through. Let me know what you think. Your views and opinions in the comment section. Let's go.
To continue if the very people on one of the two sides are being attacked with a view to killing them all. That to me made absolutely no sense. And if you're on the Hamas side and you are charged with trying to negotiate any kind of settlement, surely that would be the moment you would shut up shop, because actually, if you're going to get killed, what's the point?
Well, Piers, let's go back and just remember, Hamas had already pretty much shut those negotiations down. They were pretending that they were open to things, but they really weren't. That's why Steve Witkoff left. It's why the secretary made his statements. It's why everything had chilled. Nothing was really moving. Hamas was making unreasonable demands that were never going to happen. The president gave them a pretty clear mandate.
If I recall rightly, we were told they were in the process of reaching some type of agreement. And then, you know what happened next?
President Trump said, let all the hostages go, not some, don't dribble them out, let them all go. And you have to leave. You have to give up any hope that you're going to continue to rule Gaza, to have a future in it, because you're not. And that's been a pretty consistent message, even from the Arab League, who unanimously voted for exactly the same thing. So let's be clear who Hamas is. You know this to be true. Hamas is the murderous barbarians who butchered people on October the 7th. They continue to hold hostages. They continue to torture them. They torture their own people. They put them in harm's way knowingly and threaten, and even in fact do shoot them if they try to get out of harm's way, when Israel is announcing that they're going to hit a particular.
Something I've tended to question, and I've had this discussion with a few mates. With all of these videos we see of what's been going on in Palestine, Gaza, the terrible things that's happened, rarely ever do we see the two sides actually going at each other. On the electric intifada, sometimes, well, not sometimes, you'll often see what one side is up to. And generally on mainstream media, we see what Israel is doing to, their side of the battle. Rarely do you see the two parties. I know how that's worked out the way it's worked out, but I find it very baffling. We just see, in most part, videos of starvation, the destruction, and the civilian population. The two warring armies, if you can describe it that way, rarely see that. If you've got an answer to that question, please let me know. Point me in the direction.
Terrorist target. So these are not people that even on their best day negotiate in good faith or have any intention of doing something that is moral. They just are incapable of that.
Right, but is deliberately targeting the negotiators on the Hamas side with a view to killing them as they're considering a proposal, is that acting in good faith? I mean, surely that is not acting in good faith. And America, of all countries in the world, given it happened in the country that is one of their allies, their big, you could argue their biggest ally, given the presence of so many American military there. Surely America must have been, you said you had no forward knowledge. Okay, but once you knew what they'd done, surely the United States, somebody somewhere, you or Donald Trump or somebody, would have got on the phone to Netanyahu and said, what the hell are you playing at?
What's taking place? That's a good point. Ladies,
I want to repeat. Prime Minister said it was their decision. They did what they thought would be instrumental in getting rid of some of the people of Hamas who are still making the big decisions. That's been problematic for this entire process. But Israel is trying to find a way to bring this to a conclusion. For 22 months now, plus, they've had hostages being held. We still have 2 Americans being held. They're deceased, but their families want their remains back. And Hamas has not budged. They really have not been serious about coming to any reasonable way to end this because they don't want it to end. If they let all the hostages go, there's nothing left holding them to any point of power. And that's where this situation has devolved. Whether Israel made a good decision, whether or not it was successful, one for the history books. But I know that the U.S. has had the position that we have respect for a sovereign country, Israel, who is our ally, our partner, and we recognize they're going to do what they think will help them get those hostages, all of them, out of Gaza and out from under the clutches of the monsters of Hamas.
Well, look, to be crystal clear, obviously, I believe fervently the hostages should all be released. It's outrageous that they haven't been. And I view Hamas as a despicable terror group. And the fact they won't release hostages reaffirms my view. Not that I needed it reaffirmed after October the 7th. But given what is going on now in Gaza City, how comfortable are you, Ambassador? Like, overnight reported Israel killed 22 more people, including 9 children, in strikes on Gaza City. A total of 51 people killed across Gaza today, according to the Hamas-run Health Authority. And I accept that you will doubtless quibble with their numbers, but we do know from the sheer scale of attacks going on there, it is highly probable that these casualty numbers are pretty accurate. It seems to me that Netanyahu and his government have taken a view of just levelling as much of Gaza as they can, rendering it uninhabitable, with a view to what Smodrich and Ben-Gvir and these very hard right members of that cabinet keep saying publicly, which is that the war aim is no longer just about trying to defeat Hamas, which they failed to do, or release the hostages, which they failed to do. The new war aim is actually to dispel Palestinians from Gaza completely. And they've been brazen about this. And that, to me,
sounds pretty accurate.
As somebody who supported Israel's right to defend itself, in fact, said it was their duty. And I said that for many, many months. But I can't sit back and in all good conscience say, when people are openly talking about ethnic cleansing.
See, at this point, I give Piers Morgan credit because he stands up as a fair broker, at least in these debates.
Which is a war crime, that this should not be happening. Can you defend it?
Well, let me dispute the idea that it's ethnic cleansing. I don't think that that is the goal. This could have ended October the 8th of 2023, as we both know. It should have ended then. This should not have gone on as long. Israel has tried pretty much everything. They've gone soft, they've gone hard. They've done ceasefires. They have done massive amounts of humanitarian food poured into Gaza, more than has ever been poured into a country in the midst of a war.
Debatable.
No one's ever seen this level of humanitarian aid. Now, most of it doesn't get to the people who need it because Hamas steals it, sells it, makes money off of it. So it's been a train wreck in that regard. So I would also dispute the figures because it's such an unreliable source when we depend upon Hamas to give us the numbers of what's happening. But I would concede there's absolutely suffering going on in Gaza. There's deprivation. There's all kinds of horrific things happening. And if Hamas had even a tinge of conscience, they would just decide that there's no future for them and there's no future for the people as long as they continue to stay. Let the hostages go in this war. They've been offered exile. That's a pretty generous offer. And I don't believe...
You know, I have to say at this stage, even if Hamas stepped aside, I believe their land is still sought after. Prime beachfront real estate. I don't think the other party is going to let up without taking charge of that portion of geography. That's just my humble opinion. As a layperson.
The intention of the Israelis, you may have mentioned a couple of people, but I can tell you that it is not the intention of the current government to force displacement from people. They have said repeatedly, it's certainly the position of our president, that nobody should be forced to leave Gaza. People should be given a choice if they...
Remember this, sometimes you watch what people say, other times you also watch what they do. In this case, it really does ring true.
Wish to leave, but nobody should be forced out of Gaza if they wish to stay.
But where will they live if the place is literally obliterated?
It's going to be a very challenging environment. Most of it is rubble. It's going to require an enormous level of temporary housing. But there have been other situations around the globe following a war when people were able to live through what is the aftermath and a complete mess. But when I was in Gaza and talked to people there, most of them said they wanted to stay. But what they did not want was Hamas having anything to do with the future. Every single person I spoke with had had a family member who had been murdered by Hamas, someone in their family. So there's no love there. And in fact, if anything, there is utter contempt for what they've been through. They don't blame the U.S. Interestingly, they didn't hate the IDF. I would have expected them to, but their contempt for Hamas was palpable.
So many people don't know the cause of their back problems. This position is one of them. Obstructive sleep apnea happens when...
To all those individuals?
Do you believe in the idea of a two-state solution, ultimately?
You know, I think it depends on where the two states are going to be. You know, let's go back to 1948 when the British Mandate was first divided. And at that time, Jordan had control of most all of what we now call the West Bank or Judea and Samaria.
You know, many have said that announcing the recognition of a Palestinian state by France, Canada, Australia, and Keir Starmer on behalf of Great Britain, many have said this should have happened 50 plus 60 years ago. Better late than never, I guess.
At most of Jerusalem, they had pretty much all of that land in the Jordan Valley, west of the Jordan, up into Jerusalem. Israel had a tiny little sliver. Here's my question. If a Palestinian state was the goal, how come they didn't put one there in the 20 years that they had to do it? And in 2000, I mean, let's go back to when Bill Clinton was negotiating and Ehud Barak was the prime minister of Israel, offered Yasser Arafat 96% of the territory. And he walked away from it and said, nope, that's not enough. So it's interesting that we keep hearing as if it's Israel's fault there's not a two-state. But the truth is the Palestinians have not taken advantage of what has been offered to them in the past. And now the question would be, get a map out and show me where the boundaries of...
In a nutshell, I guess what he's saying is it's their fault.
This Palestinian state would be. In what part of all of Judea and Samaria is it going to cover? And how is it going to be marked off, and how will it provide security that the Israelis can feel comfortable about, especially after what they've been through with October 7th and the barrages of attack from Iranian proxies, Hezbollah, and the Houthis.
So taking your view of it that you've just articulated, what would you find acceptable as a two-state solution?
I don't know that I have a solution for it. I mean, there have been iterations that have been offered, but I'm not seeing one that is practical based on the current political climate. I think there are going to have to be some serious discussions as to will there be a complete end to what most Western countries call pay for slay. In the PA, it's called the Martyrs and Prisoners Fund. But you can't continue to fund terrorists and give them rewards for carrying out terrorist acts that kill people. You can't have a curriculum in schools that incite violence against people who are in Israel. Those are things that have to be dealt with. There just must be some definite, complete changes in the way that people look at each other.
I'm looking at Piers Morgan's body language, taking all of this in. And do I sense a feeling of propaganda, or is he just digesting it? You never know.
Love to see there be a solution that everybody is happy with, could live with, and people live in peace. But it's not something that can be arbitrarily apportioned because some people aspire to it. It will require some serious heavy lifting. And quite frankly, it's going to take some creative thinking as to how do you do this in a secure way so that people are not going to be under the threat of another October 7th.
But it sounds to me that you're not 100% opposed to the concept of a Palestinian state.
Oh.
Well, what I'm not opposed to is people living together in peace. There are a lot of people who.
No, I understand that, but I'm talking more about the principle of a Palestinian state. Because I mean, I found it interesting that you haven't just ruled that out, because obviously what the UK and other countries have been saying this week is they want to establish the starting block for a Palestinian state, and you're not saying that can never happen. So is there not a meeting here of minds where actually, if the conditions are correct, then you would support it?
Well, it's not my place to do it. I'm an ambassador. I don't get to make the policy. I carry it out. I tell people I'm not the chemist making the medicine. I'm the pharmacist that gets to dispense it. It'll be President Trump's decision on what our policy is. But here's what I can say emphatically, because this is the U.S. position. This move to unilaterally declare a Palestinian state, and Piers, that's a little different than simply saying there ought to be one. These European countries, and also Canada, Australia, and others, are just saying we're going to acknowledge and declare a Palestinian state. Well, you just can't do that. That's a violation of international law. It's a violation of the Oslo Accords. To do that without bringing...
For everyone who's been watching the media for the last 2 years over this conflict, there's been a lot of violations of international law. Trust me on that.
Israel into that discussion and participation is only making things less likely to ever have a Palestinian state. So if the goal is to have one...
Sad conclusion from the ambassador there. Just like to pause for the cause, take a moment to have a brief word from our video sponsor today, and they are Small Debts. If you're based in the UK and you need somebody to represent you and you've got into any difficulties online, you've been scammed, or you are waiting on a rent deposit, doesn't even have to be online. Look them up. They will represent you and get your money back for you. smalldebts.co.uk. Check them out.
Security deposit back or dealing with unfair charges? At Small Debts, our tenant advocate service fights to get your money back. No stress, no hassle. Take control today. Visit smalldebts.co.uk and start your case now. Struggling to get...
That's who they are. Look them up if you need that kind of assistance.
I'll tell you, these European countries have gone about it in the polar opposite way of it being effective.
What's your message for the British Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, who led the charge this week?
I would say to him,
good question.
It's probably best if you said, maybe we were premature with this. Let's work toward a better picture of first getting the hostages out. Let's put our focus on all hostages coming out, resolving the war in Gaza,
sure about that.
And then let's talk about the future, both in Gaza as well as in Judea and Samaria. That's what I would say to him. I think they jumped the gun way ahead of themselves.
So he doesn't even recognize the West Bank as the West Bank. He refers to it as Judea and Samaria, which I know is how the Israeli politicians refer to it.
And it really has created an additional problem that nobody, and I mean nobody, needed right now, while we still have hostages that are being tortured by these monsters.
Let me ask you something. If you knew there was a way to learn how to trade properly from people who...
in Gaza.
Finally, Ambassador, I want to play a clip of you talking about Israel as being the wife of the United States. It's gone viral, as you know. Let's take a look.
Okay.
This is a nation that is the most resilient I've ever seen on earth. It may sound a little bit this afternoon as if I'm almost speaking on behalf of Israel rather than the U.S., but I want to explain that part of my advocacy in our relationship is because if you came to my house tonight for dinner and you came in and you said, oh, Mike, we like you, we really think the world of you, we just enjoy being with you, we're so excited to be here with you and have dinner with you. But your wife, we can't stand her. We don't like her a bit. I hope she's not going to be at the table. I would say, well, she will be, you won't be, get out. Because if you were to insult my partner, You have insulted me.
I guess my question about that, because it has gone viral, is was it advisable to basically categorize the relationship between
Yeah, that deserved a little
United
interlude
States
at
and
that
Israel
point.
as like a marriage?
Well, first of all, let's be clear. You're a smart guy, Piers. You know a lot about literary devices. That was not an allegory. It was an analogy. In other words, it is a story to make a point, which is exactly what I did. I think it's a very valid analogy. It would be a terrible allegory, but as an analogy, it's illustrative and it works because my point is simple. Israel is not just one of a bunch of allies or a friend. It is, in fact, a very close partner. We have a unique relationship with Israel in intelligence, military, civilization, technology, agriculture, energy. It goes on and on. My point is that when people are hypercritical of Israel, they're hypercritical of our partner that the U.S. has decided that is a very important partner to us. So we don't take it lightly that someone is condemning and calling our partner genocidal or running an apartheid state or guilty of war crimes. And that's why.
What if they happen to be appearing to be doing just that? What'd you do then?
Some of the actions that you've seen this administration under President Trump take have been pretty strong. I can't imagine how they could be any stronger. Why have we taken that? For exactly the reason that I spelled out in the analogy, is because you insult our partner, you're insulting us.
And finally, I'm about to speak to Hussam Zomlot. He's the Palestinian ambassador to the UK. He's been listening to our interview. What message do you have for him?
Well, I would say I hope that we can see some resolution on the financial impasse. I'd love to see that payments toward those who have committed acts of terror would not just cease in name, but in practice, and that there would be a full-throated denunciation of it and a full-throated demand for all hostages to be released and Hamas to be let go. And then I would say, call upon the European friends, those who have decided to stand with you for a declaration of a Palestinian state, and tell them you appreciate it and that there may come a day in which you will really wish that to happen. But right now may not be the best time, and it cannot happen unless Israel is involved in those discussions as per Oslo. So let's hold off on making a declaration, which is frankly meaningless. It does not have substance. It's symbolic. And let's work toward real.
It's not meaningless to some of the powers that be.
Solutions that give everybody a better future, because right now they're suffering in the Palestinian Authority. My visits there, not only with government officials, but also with business people, it's a dire situation. 39% unemployment, people not getting paid. The U.S. doesn't want to see the PA collapse financially. It's not in anyone's good and best interest. So that would be my message.
Is it a mistake, you mentioned the PA, not to allow the head of the PA into the United States to be at the UN this week?
I think it was the right decision, and it was one the president made and the secretary have obviously affirmed. And the reason was, it was because this is a runaway train with all the European nations, including the UK and France and others, who are just going against everyone's best advice from the US and Israel and saying this is not a right moment. You need to be putting pressure not on Israel, you need to be putting the pressure on Hamas. Let's end what's going on in Gaza for everyone's sake. Let's get those hostages out, and then let's have these conversations. So it was one way to say, we're not just a little displeased as a United States, we are quite displeased with the direction that this has gone.
Ambassador Huckabee, once again, thank you very much for your time and coming back on Uncensored. I do really appreciate our conversation.
Thank you, Piers. Great to be.
Every morning you show up, you put in the hours, but do you ever wonder if making it work is truly enough?
Nothing that I didn't expect to hear him say.
US national debt is more than 37 trillion.
I'm going to take a pause this stage. If you want to see the rest of the interview, and yeah, you can check it out at Piers Morgan Uncensored. So, as per usual, I'd just like to say thank you again for spending some time here with myself at here at CornerSpeak, and myself on UAJ representing CornerSpeak. As per usual, be good, be safe, and be creative if you can. For now, I'm pretty much out of here. Also, like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet done so. Leave your point of view, talking points, perspective in the comment section. Catch you on the next cycle round. Be good, be safe, be creative. I'm finally out.